Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, and we will attempt to share the screen. Where are you, screen? There you are. December 10th in Asia. Happy Sunday morning in Asia. Our first topic, the 4 perspectives found in Gurudeva's Shumtyief language. We did these not too long ago, but there's been a request to go through them again. And I'm sure the reason is there's more to learn. They are a bit deep. So let's see what we can learn today. Shumtyief, definition. Name of Shumtyief language. And now the mystical language of meditation revealed in Switzerland in 1968 by Sivaya Subramanya Swami. It is often known simply as Shum and may be signified by the character Shum with the dot above it. That's in the Shum script. This language comes from the inner areas of the heart of the mind and has a positive effect on the nerve system. Oh, what's that? 1968, 32 plus 23, 55 years. Getting up there. Gurudeva created 12 simple meditation maps, one for each month of the year, called Mamsani, and had them carved into the pillars of Yerevan temple so that they would never be forgotten. Very wise, Gurudeva. Today we are looking at the August Mamsani, which is on the 4 perspectives, and that's how they're written in Shum script. Shumief, Mulief, Simnief, and Dimfi. And we have Gurudeva's description of this Mamsani. This is one of our most delightful Mamsani, naming the 4 different focuses of consciousness. The intelligence within each of these 4 can and has taken lifetimes to know, to memorize, to investigate, cognize, and expand the mind into the depths which are there to be explored. But imagine this month gaining a superconscious glimpse of all 4 of these perspectives at one time. So that's something you may not have noticed before. The idea of gaining a superconscious glimpse of all 4 of these perspectives at one time. So it's like a table with 4 legs when you're sitting. You're on top of it. So, see if you can give that some thought. This is the simplest rendering into English coming up next. Shumtyief, meditation. Simnief, science. Mulief, philosophy. Dimfi, theism. And a longer, slightly longer description talks about what's moving and what's stationary. Shumtyief is the perspective of awareness flowing through the mind itself being unmoved. All the states of consciousness are always there, just like countries in the world. And awareness is like the traveler, moving from one country to the other. The countries don't move. The traveler moves and therefore has a new experience. Shumtyief perspective. Awareness traveling. Simni perspective is its opposite. The mind is moving in the intelligence of the person observing, such as a scientist looking through a microscope into the inner workings of matter is stationary. Looking through a microscope gives you the Simni perspective. Mulif is the perspective of the way of words, the way of the scholars of philosophical intellect. It doesn't have one fixed approach. Its opposite is the Dimthi perspective, which is just now coming into focus on this planet through the newly found abilities of being able to communicate with Mahadevas, Devas, and beings of all kinds on other planets, such as the Pleiades in this galaxy and beyond. Those in this perspective are not aware of being the center of all things, the Shumtyief perspective, nor are they aware of the world's many philosophies, the Mulif perspective, nor are they much concerned about the nature of a drop of water, the Simni perspective. Their minds fly high in Dimthi. And now we get a more detailed definition. This is the one in our Shum lexicon. Shumtyief, one of four perspectives, the meditative viewpoint of being awareness flowing from one area of the inner mind to another, the mind itself being stationary. We did that. The perspective of the Shumtyief language. So this is the dominant perspective in all the words within the Shumtyief language. It's also simply called the Shum perspective. In Siddhanta, it includes the deeper meditative practices. It is Advaita, or a monistic viewpoint. No, there's never a second being when you're in the Shumtyief perspective. Everything you're experiencing is yourself. Simtyief, one of four perspectives, the scientific viewpoint of looking into matter. In this perspective, the mind is moving and the intelligence of the observer is stationary. Then we get the new material here. Understanding comes through observing matter and achieving insights into its behavior. So that's how we gain new knowledge, through Simtyief. Observing matter and achieving insights into its behavior. In Siddhanta, it includes the knowledge of Hatha Yoga, pranayamas, and the currents of the physical body. So, for example, a simple observing of matter is, we've all learned over time what foods, how we react to different foods. For example, everyone has their particular limit on spiciness of a food, which if you go over that, it will upset their digestive system. So through observation, they've learned what their digestive system is able to handle in terms of spiciness. That's learning through Simtyief. Observing matter and achieving insights into its behavior. In Siddhanta, it includes the knowledge of Hatha Yoga, pranayamas, and the currents of the physical body. It can be dual, non-dual, or both, depending on the inclusiveness of the scientific theory. Most of it that I'm aware of is dualistic, but the non-dualistic is showing itself in certain proponents of quantum physics, proposing a one fundamental unitary something out there. Mulif, one of four perspectives, the philosophical viewpoint of understanding theology, metaphysical, and psychological concepts. So it's basically the intellect. Realization is often attained through understanding deep philosophical concepts, which would be an intellectual realization, not a spiritual one. So this is a point I make on a regular basis. We need to understand something intellectually, and in some cases the next step is we have to experience it. Everything we understand we don't have to experience, but for example, the inner light. we can learn that the inner light is caused by the friction between actinic force and odic force. It's like rubbing two stones together, you get a spark. So there's a friction there between actinic force, which is more refined, and odic force, which is grosser. Where they meet is the inner light. Oh, if you can answer that on a test, you intellectually understand what causes the inner light. The interaction of actinic and odic force, correct. But because it's a meditative practice, we also need to actually experience it. Sit in meditation and experience, not visualize, but actually see what is there where the actinic and the odic force interact. So that is not Mulif, the experience. Mulif is understanding the concept. And as Gurudev is saying, realization is often attained simply through understanding deep philosophical concepts. So some traditions of Hinduism seem to think that the philosophical understanding is the same thing as the experience. But in our tradition, it's not. In Saiva Siddhanta, it includes the intellectual study of Siddhanta philosophy. It can be non-dual, dual, or both, depending on the comprehensiveness of the philosophy. That's nice. Team Phi, 1 of 4 perspectives, the metaphysical viewpoint of looking into inner and outer space. It is a perspective that acknowledges, understands, and communicates with God and gods. So there's an inherent dualism. Beings on the astral plane, people from other planets. It is here that all psychic phenomena take place. Saiva Siddhanta, it includes the consciousness of the Devas, Mahadevas, and God Shiva experienced in the temple. It is Dvaita, or a dualistic viewpoint, because there's always a second being. If your experience includes another being, it's Dvaitic. Yes, there's more than one of you. There's more than one being involved. You will find when you meditate on this Mamsani that the Shumtyief and Simtyief are companion states of consciousness and inner awareness, as are the Mulif and Dimfi experiential perspectives of human consciousness and awareness. These 4 major perspectives of the consciousness of human beings create their major inner mind styling. There's no relationship to ordinary life within these perspectives. Not one of them is a second or third dimensional picture. These are 4 names that capture and categorize consciousness into 4 divisions. Saivism can well name all 4. A fully developed Saivite should be able to experience at will each of these 4 perspectives, consciously live in 2, 3, or more at the same time, as did the rishis of yore. Thank you, Gurudev. Gurudeva continues, these 4 perspectives of consciousness are complete within themselves. Each has its own obvious limitations, yet each one is an area that people are caught up in and unable to move out of. So that's not good. There is a 5th perspective, Dinamif, one spiritually unfolds into, of being able to be totally in one or another of the 4 perspectives, or all the 4 at once. This is to be striven for in the spiritual unfoldment Saiva Siddhanta meditations produce. Shankara and Vedanta is the Mulif perspective. Dualistic Saiva Siddhanta is the Dimfi perspective, accepting everything God's all life, the Charya Kriya path. Shumtyief perspective is basically yoga, and the Simtyief perspective is where people ordinarily are when not in Vedanta or Siddhanta. Materialistic consciousness, consciousness of the external world. All 4 perspectives are utilized within Saiva Siddhanta. So this is a good point here. In Shumnam, Gurudeva says, the Shumtyief perspective of the 3 worlds and the 7 dimensions of the mind does not involve us in the knowledge of the Devas and Mahadevas who live in the inner worlds. You would be experiencing through the Shumtyief perspective exactly what the Devas would experience in the 2nd and 3rd world, were they to meditate upon the Shum concepts. Shumtyief is pure Advaita. So this is the type of meditation we pursue in Shum. Very important to understand it. There's a whole presentation on different types of meditation. So this is the perspective. You're going inside yourself and you're seeing what's inside in the higher dimensions. There's no other being involved. You're not trying to have a vision of the deity. If you see inner light, the deity can see the same inner light within him. So no second being in Shum. When we become conscious of Devas, Mahadevas, or a personal deity, we have transferred our perspective into what is called the Dimfi perspective, which is pure Dvaitist. So that's our temple worship, our home shrine worship. So that's equally important, but we need to pursue each one for what it is. Shumtyief, we're going inside ourselves. Meditation, we're going inside ourselves in Shumtyief. Temple worship, puja in the home shrine, we're focusing on a deity, trying to experience the deity's blessings. Dimfi. Siddhanta philosophy is approached from the Mudli perspective when it is intellectually studied, and of course we want a good basic intellectual understanding of Saiva Siddhanta. We're not trying to be scholars or debatists, but we need to understand the basics. Otherwise our faith is not strong. We need a strong intellectual faith based on study. And of course, Banasana, Hastha Yoga, the knowledge of pranayamas, kalibasa, and the currents of the physical body all relate to the Shumtyief perspective. And a little bit more here. The Dimfi perspective is very intriguing, says Gurudeva. It is definitely the path of bhakti, karma yoga, and there is always a God Deva or outer space person to be beholden to. One not need to know much philosophy to be in this perspective. People of all religions are here. Dimfi perspective blended together with the Mudli perspective releases the powers of philosophy and creates a monistic and pluralistic Saiva Siddhanta in one person. Breaking through the barrier from Dimfi to the Mudli is easy. It does take study, coaching from an accomplished adept, but when the two are blended, Vedanta and Siddhanta merge. In other words, Gurudev is describing how many Hindus progress through their understanding of Hinduism. They start out in Dimfi, they're worshipping without any intellectual framework. Worshipping the village deity, worshipping in the temple, the major deity. If you ask them to explain things, they wouldn't be able to. Then we add philosophy to that. Let's see what we do next. When these two perspectives are blended with the Shumtyief perspective, monistic Saiva Siddhanta bursts forth in all of its fullness. So we've added meditation and actually experiencing what we've been reading about. And when these three perspectives are blended with Shumtyief, monistic Saiva Siddhantans can then contribute to the betterment of this generation and the generations to come. Shumtyief perspective sees into the mechanism of growing things, what's in the earth, making everything work, what's in the egg, what's in the DNA. And something slightly wrong with the slide. I'm going to repeat it, okay? Sorry about that. So this is where it starts to get very interesting, for those of you who are familiar with the previous. How do we apply all of this to daily life? This is so obtuse, abstract. What can we do with this knowledge? It's like knowing the composition of soil on the moon. Okay, what can I do with it? Gurudeva is Commentary. To psychoanalyze your problems would be in the Mulif perspective. Okay? To take the feet of Lord Murugan would be the Dimfi perspective. To move awareness away from the problem into a happier state of mind and then look back and understand the karmas involved is the Shumtyief perspective. To be injected by a psychiatrist with a chemical drug to alleviate the problem would be the Shumtyief perspective. So let's take a common modern day problem, minor depression. Notice this does not say major depression. It says minor depression, which is very different from major depression. It's something amateurs can solve, shall we say. Major depression, professionals are needed. So minor depression, and look at how the problem can be solved through each of these four approaches. And that's the question for you. How would this problem of minor depression be solved through the Shumtyief perspective? The Shumtyief perspective is often favored by people which is taking a prescription drug such as Prozac to chemically alter our mood. No, not criticizing that. It's just done quite frequently, at least in the US. How would this problem be solved through the Mulif perspective? Discussing this problem with a counselor, psychologist, or psychiatrist is the solution from the Mulif perspective. We need to talk to somebody who understands minor depression, and that can help move the person out of it. How would this problem be solved through the Dimfi perspective? Oh, that's easy. Going to the temple and placing the problem at the feet of the deity is the solution from the Dimfi perspective. How would this problem be solved through the Shumtyief perspective? Solving the problem through meditation is the Shumtyief perspective, moving awareness into a happier state of mind and looking back and understanding the karmas. So those are the examples of how the four perspectives can be used to solve the challenge of minor depression. And in real life, in helping a devotee, we use all four perspectives. All four approaches. When everything is going fairly well in a devotee's life, we end up using just the Dimfi and Shumtyief perspectives. These two are the core of our Saivasiddhanta philosophy, which is described as monistic theism, or a practice which emphasizes both temple worship, the theism, and meditation, the monism. Advice relates to going to the temple and worshiping Lord Ganesha, or meditation on certain Shum concepts. So we do that a lot, but sometimes that's not the appropriate response. However, when a devotee is somewhat discouraged, we rely on Mulif, sharing the philosophical insights of Gurudeva. For example, everything is as it should be. Whatever you face is your own self-created karma. Lean on the power of your spine. This helps the devotee become re-inspired to the point where they are able, through the practice of temple worship and meditation, to solve their own problems again. So we have to help cheer them up before the other two approaches will work. Sometimes Shumtyief advice is also given, such as how someone would benefit by exercising half an hour a day, losing weight, following a better diet, and so forth. So all of that's Shumtyief. So interesting. We're actually using all four perspectives in the advice we give for minor depression and other challenges faced. Ready for our second topic, Satsang at Hindu.org questions. Looking again at the question we looked at the last few times. I never quite understood fully the meaning of Chellapaswami's statement. It has been accomplished long ago. It will be great if Bodhinatha could touch on this Mahavakiam in future satsangs. As we mentioned in previous Shum satsang, certainly a major reason it is difficult to understand this Mahavakiam is that it has meanings on many different levels, not just one level. So because it has many meanings, we get confused. We just think there should be one meaning. But having many meanings is okay. That's how we need to approach it. Today we are looking at how the actions of our life are influenced by our karma and our astrology, and how that's part of it was all finished long ago. So the numbers are from some other presentation, so you can ignore them. Next is the concept of individual karma. So this is drawing from a definition of karma, which goes through karma. Does karma mean? Karma means action. The law of karma is the laws of cause and effect, etc. So different ideas of karma. This gets up to the point of individuals have karma. Karma also refers to our individual karma that we carry from life to life, both the karma to be resolved in this life and the karma to be resolved in a future life. To understand this better, let us reflect on the criminal justice system. Justice is known for moving slowly. It can take a number of years before a convicted criminal receives his punishment. The law of karma is even slower. The consequences of fruits of action, known as karma pala, may not come for a number of lifetimes. Thus the karma we are born with is comprised of rewards and punishments from many past lives that have yet to manifest and are yet to be resolved. So it's both rewards and punishments. It's the consequences of each of our individual actions. And as you will recall, there are three types of this karma. And that's the question for you. What are the three types of individual karma? These are the Sanskrit words. Our individual karma is of three types: sanchita, prarabdha, and kriyamana. Sanchita, prarabdha, and kriyamana. Sanchita is the sum total of past karmas yet to be resolved. Prarabdha is that portion of sanchita karma scheduled to be experienced in the present life, shaping its events and conditions, including the nature of our bodies, personal tendencies, and associations. So clearly we can say that what happens in this life is based on our prarabdha karma, and in that sense our current life is finished long ago. We of course created it by our actions in past lives, but if someone could read our prarabdha karma, they could explain what our life is going to be. So it's already determined, not every infinitesimal detail, but the general patterns of the life, unless we do serious religious practices which would improve it and add more to it. Basically, the idea is what's going to happen in this life. It was all determined long ago, and you can find it in our prarabdha karma. Kriyamana is karma you are presently creating. While some kriyamana karmas bear fruit in the current life, others are stored for future births. Seventh is the idea of astrology indicating the patterns. Prarabdha karma determines one's time of birth, which dictates one's astrology, which in turn delineates the individual life pattern by influencing the release of these karmas. Astrology determines the release of the karmas. Thus, an individual will experience certain astrological periods as difficult and other periods as auspicious and positive. Astrology does not dictate our karma. Rather, our karma determines our astrology. So understanding our horoscope helps us knowledgeably manage our karma as it rises to be faced. Eighth is the idea of active and inactive. Sanchita, Prarabdha, and Kriyamana karmas can each be divided into two categories: Arabdha, begun or undertaken, karma that is sprouting, and Anarabdha, not commenced, dormant, or seed karmas. An analogy can be drawn to a garden in which a variety of seeds have been planted. Some types of plants will sprout in a few days. Others will take weeks, and still others lie dormant for months. Similarly, some of our karmas will manifest in the next few years, some toward life's end, and others in a future life. We can summarize by saying, in the idea it was all finished long ago, our Prarabdha karma determines what happens to us in this life. We already made that point, so this is the new point coming up. And our astrology determines when it happens. So that's all astrology does. Astrology didn't create the karmas. It just determines when the different karmas manifest that are Prarabdha karma. Astrology doesn't make anything manifest that's not in the Prarabdha karma, that portion of Sanchita karma that's not the Prarabdha karma. It's not touched by astrology unless we do significant religious practices, and then we start drawing on the portion of Sanchita karma that wasn't scheduled to be gone through. We accelerate our progress, which is one of the benefits of regular sadhana. So astrology is a complicated subject, and as I've said in previous room satsangs, not that knowledgeable in it, but I do understand the basic principles, and the word I like to use is choreographs. We have all these events that are going to happen, and in a dance performance, they're choreographed into a wonderful pattern. Some scenes are happy, some scenes are sad, some scenes are tragic, some things are related. All these different periods makes a good dance drama. So astrology does that. It gives us some really great times, then some difficult times, some mediocre times. It doesn't give all the bad times together. Spaces them out. It alternates them. And as we said before, every time is a good time for some activity. Sometimes some astrological periods are very good for external activities. Other astrological periods are good for internal activities. So if you try to do the wrong type of action for the period, it'll be difficult to be successful, shall we say. So understanding all of that is helpful, and the most important thing is to know in external life, if you're considering making a major change, such as putting your life savings into a new business, what's the nature of the period? It really has to be good for being successful in external activities. Thank you very much. Oh.